Your money is greater. And your anointing is spread. 1, 2, out.
Are you dancing this morning? Open those doors, open those windows.
All right. Here we are.
Make some noise. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go. Stay strong. You never walk. United. Together. United. My brother. My sister, you stay. You never. Get y'all to say that with the choir. United. Together. We can.
Right. Come on, get your hands. Let's have some church in here. Come on, put your hand together. I just want
Let's go to church.
right.
Let's go to
I
church.
just wanna be
Let's
right.
go to church.
I just wanna
Let's go
be
to church.
right. I
Come
just
on.
wanna be
Come
right.
on.
When you see me singing my song, I just wanna be right. When you see me walking alone, I just wanna be right. Girl, it's time to say right. Oh yeah. I just wanna be right. Say right. Right. Oh yeah. I just wanna be right. Listen here, when you see me singing, I just wanna be right. Yeah. When you see me testifying, I just wanna be right. When you see me giving God the praise, I just wanna be right. Yeah. When you see me worshiping the Lord, I just wanna be right. Right. I just wanna be right. Anybody wanna be right? I just wanna be right. Wave your hand and say right. Yeah. I just wanna be right. Say right. Now come on, let's praise him up in here.
To be rewind and come again. To be rewind and come again.
Now if you want to be right, come on, put your hand together. Let's have some church in here. Come on, put your hand together. I just want to be right. 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 When you see me singing my song, I just want to be right. When you see me walking alone, I just want to be right. Girl, it's time to say right. Oh yeah. I just want to be right. Say right. Right. Oh yeah. I just want to be right. Listen here, when you see me singing, I just want to be right. Yeah. When you see me testifying, I just want to be right. When you see me giving God the praise, I just want to be right. Yeah. When you see me worshiping the Lord, I just want to be right. Right. I just want to be right. Anybody want to be right? I just want to be right. Wave your hand and say right. Yeah. I just want to be right. Say right. Now come on, let's praise him up in here. Be right. Be right. Be right. Be right. Be right. Be right. I want to be right. Anybody here want to be right? Be right. Anybody here want to be right? If you want to be right, be right. Let me hear you. Clap your hands. Let me hear you. Clap your hands. Say clap it. Ain't no one. Hey. Be right. Be right. Be right. I want to be right. Look at me. I'm a young man. 27 years old. I could have been a drug dealer. I could have been a drug addict. I could have been an alcoholic. I could have been a gang member. I could have been a robber. But look at me. Give me God the praise. Just look. Just look at me. 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 I'm serious. Be right. Anybody here wanna be right? If you wanna be right, come on. Oh yeah. I just wanna be right. So right. Yeah. I just wanna be right.
Bring it back, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back, Keith Wonderboy Johnson.
Be right. Be right. Be right. I wanna be right. Be right. Be right. Be right. I wanna be right. Is there anybody out here that know they
on 90.3 FM in New York.
About me, can I tell you?
Happy Mother's Day.
Every way of my life.
This morning plays every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. sharp.
I'm trying. Sometimes talked about that. Sometimes scandalized. Sometimes criticized. Sometimes I'm knocked down on my knees. I tell the Lord, let me be, 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 let me be. Was it anybody? Was it anybody?
When the questions arise and the tears fill your eyes, desperate for an answer, feeling empty inside. But he who sits high also looks low. He's no respecter of person, so surrender your soul. When the wind intensifies and the storm passes by, we make haste for shelter, trembling inside. He who holds the way also holds my hand. Also holds your hand. He's your shield and protector. So run to no man. Rest in the hands of the Lord thy God. Oh, blessed is the man. Is the man that findeth God. Oh, God is your light in your darkest hour. So close your eyes to see him. He was there all the time. All the time. When the trouble subsides and the clouds clear the sky, the pain you may remember, but your joy is deep inside. Oh, thanks be to God for just being there. For just being there. He's yours today and tomorrow and forever and a day. Oh, yeah. In the hands of the Lord. That findeth in your darkest hour. Close your eyes to see. Close your eyes to see him. There all the time. Walking side by side by your child, rendering your Holy Spirit in me. When I could not see my way, you were there to guide me through the darkened days when I was deceived by deception. Oh, you kept me, never let me. You started with me all through the night. Lord, my God, oh, my overseer.
Though the storms keep on
raging in my life. And sometimes it's hard to tell the night from day. Still that hope that lies within is reassured as I keep my eyes upon the distant shore. I know He'll lead me safely to that blessed place He has prepared. But if the storms don't cease, and if the winds keep on blowing in my life, my soul has been in the Lord. I realize that sometimes in this life we're gonna be tossed by the waves and the currents that seem so fierce. But one thing I like about it, in the Word of God, I've got an anchor, hallelujah, and it keeps me steadfast and unmovable despite the time. But if the storms just don't cease, and just in case the wind will keep on blowing in my life, my soul been anchored. Hear the Lord, hear the Lord. My soul, for the billows may roll and the breakers may dash, but I shall not sway because He hold me fast. So long today, clouds in the sky, I know it's alright, 'cause Jesus is now in my soul, my soul, my soul. My soul, my soul, my soul, my
There's a place in heaven toils of this life is over. Where the saints are clothed in white before the throne, praises forevermore. In my Father's house there are mansions bright. If He said it, then I know it's true. Yeah, there's a place for me beyond the sky. Brothers and sisters, there's one for you. Jesus, He promised me a home over there. Jesus promised me a home over there. No more sickness, sorrow, pain, care. He promised me a home over there. Jesus promised me a home over there. Jesus promised me a home over there. No more sickness or sorrow, pain or care. Jesus promised me a home over there. There's a place in heaven prepared for me when the toils of this life is over. Where the saints are clothed in white before the throne, singing praises forevermore. In my Father's house there are mansions bright. If He said it, then I know it's true. Yeah. place for me. Beyond the sky, brothers and sisters, there's one for you. Jesus, he promised me a home over there. Jesus promised me a home over there. No more sickness, sorrow, pain, care. He promised me a home over there. Jesus promised me a home over there. Jesus promised me a home over there. No more sickness or sorrow, pain or care. Jesus promised me a home over there.
I remember Mama and the love that she gave. Kneeling by her bedside, I can still hear Mama say, the people are depending on you, Shirley. Don't you let them down. I remember Mama in a happy way. We went to school with holes in our shoes. We didn't have much, but the Lord saw us through. Mama kept the family together, yes she did. I remember Mama in a happy way. She packed our lunch in an old greasy bag. It might have seemed empty, but it was more than others had. It had a lot of love way down deep inside. Yes, it did. And I remember Mama in a happy way. I remember Mama in a happy way. Now Mama is sleeping in the bosom of Jesus Christ. Yeah. Somehow I know she's smiling. She's smiling over us right now. Look at that. One day I'll see her again. How happy I will be. Yeah. I remember Mama in a happy way. Yeah. I remember my mama when I was about 12 years old. I was going to church, playing church. How many of you used to play church? Let me see your hand. Yeah, some of you still play. And I remember I'd go down Mount Calvary, that's where I belong. And I'd jump and I'd shout and I'd come back home. But I was still disobedient. I would talk back. And one day, me and Ann here, we decided that we want to play church. Let me tell you what we did. We went out in the back and started playing church. And my brother was a pastor. Me and Ann here, we were the members in the church. And let me tell you something. It's hard to come in contact with Jesus and still be the same. I don't care who you are. I don't care. You can be the chiefest of sinners. You will never be the same. And I've forgotten I've been going down to the church, playing church. Came home still disobedient. Didn't want to wash the dishes. Didn't want to bring the clothes in off the line. Didn't want to do anything. Mama said, I'm sick of you going down to that church playing with God. And then we went outdoors. We started playing church. Sat down on the bottom step. My brother was a preacher. And we were the members in the church. And he put some old glasses and put them right here on his nose. And he said, I want you to jump up and shout Jesus 3 times. And I jumped up and I shouted Jesus 2 times. But when I jumped up the 3rd time, something got a hold of me. I couldn't sit back down. Ann ran in the house. She said, Mama, so Charlene is out there playing with the Lord. Mama came to the door. And she looked out there and saw me, shouting and dancing all over the backyard, tears running down my face. It's just a laugh. Mama looked out there and she said, she ain't playing this time. Hallelujah! And I remember Mama.
Oh my! Pastor Shirley Caesar. I remember Mama. And before that, Jennifer Hudson. A place over there. Happy Mother's Day.
Keep it going. Y'all give it up for TJ McGee.
Hey, didn't get whooping by my mama. Y'all don't know whoopings like I know whoopings. They were talking about the white lady who beat up her child in the SUV. Y'all see that on TV? Talking about giving her 3 years. They give her 3 years. My mama should be doing life without parole. She should be on the chain gang somewhere going, nobody knew the trouble I... My mama used to whoop you an hour, talk to you an hour. Whoop you an hour, talk to you an hour. Whoop you another hour, talk to you an hour. To this day, I get butt whooping flashbacks. I was standing, I said, man, we gonna play basketball or what, man? I came out here to play some... Grocery store ordering groceries. Hey, do y'all have any? Be on a date with a girl, you looking good. I just want to tell you.
Let's go to church. Let's go to church. Let's go to church. Let's go to church. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. You've been good. You've been good. You've been good. I know you've been good. You've been
man.
You've been good.
Ray Williams.
You've been good. So good to me. Thank you, Lord. You've been good. Another thing I want to tell you, lay down in my bed last night. Didn't even know where I was. But Lord, you kept me, never left me. You kept your arms all around me. I thank you, Lord. You've been good. You've been good. shackles. Got to loose off my feet.
Shackles of sickness.
Unloose these shackles.
Got to
Shackles off my feet.
Shackles of sadness.
Unloose these shackles.
Got to
Shackles off my feet.
Now everybody clap those hands.
It's time to dance this morning. Are you dancing?
Now somebody might be standing next to you, acting like they don't want no shackles to be loose. But if you got somebody next to you like that, tell your neighbor, say, get on out of my way. 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 God's been good to me. God's been good. I said, God's been good to me. I thought about it. I thought about it.
To set me free.
God about it. I've been down.
Oh yeah.
What's
So long.
I need
Jesus to set me free.
Yeah. Unloose
these shackles.
Shackles
off my feet. Unloose these shackles. Shackles off my feet.
I've been bound down.
Unloose these shackles.
What's too long?
Off my feet.
Help me, Jesus.
Unloose these shackles. Shackles off my feet.
Turn me loose. Turn me loose. Everybody in the field.
Turn me loose.
Tell the adversary.
Turn me loose.
Tell your problem.
Turn me loose.
Turn you loose.
WHCR.
You've been down.
Turn me loose.
Much too long.
Turn me loose.
Don't let Satan
Turn me loose.
steal your joy.
Turn me loose.
Don't let your sickness
Turn me loose.
keep your hands down.
Turn me loose.
Just remember
Turn me loose.
why he strikes.
Turn me loose.
Why he strikes.
Turn me loose.
Why he strikes.
Turn me.
We are healed.
Turn me loose.
Anybody here healed?
Turn me loose.
Anybody here healed?
Turn me loose.
Tell your neighbor.
Turn me loose.
Tell your neighbor.
Turn me loose.
Turn me loose.
Turn me loose.
I don't need no bad company.
Turn me loose.
I don't need no complaining.
Turn me loose.
Because all of my good days.
Turn me loose.
I tell you all of my good days.
Turn me loose.
I tell you all of my good days.
Open up those doors. Open up those windows.
Turn me loose.
And run that devil out. Run it out.
I complain. Turn me loose.
Turn me loose.
Turn me loose.
Turn me loose.
I don't know about y'all, but
Turn me loose.
I got to use the power
Turn me loose.
that God gave me
Turn me loose.
to talk to my situation.
Turn me loose.
Are you dancing this morning?
There is no weapon. I said, there
Are you getting your breakthrough this morning?
against me.
Turn me loose.
You can talk about me, but
Turn me loose.
I'm gonna go to the Lord.
Turn me loose.
Go to the Lord in prayer.
Turn me loose.
After I go to the Lord,
Turn me loose.
the Lord in prayer.
Turn me loose.
I've been down to for anybody feeling like me. Anybody feeling like me. Tell the devil. Tell the devil. I've been down too long. I've been down too long. And I've got to. Whoa, turn me. Somebody
You got to come out of your situation. I'ma talk life into you. Tell me, girl, what's that? I'm gonna run
Oh my. Whcr family, your boy is tired. But I feel good. Oh my. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Glory! Glory! Hey! Hey! My. Woo! Yes, Jesus. Yes, Lord, I give you all the honor and the praise this morning, Lord. You brought me from a mighty long way. Oh, I thank you, Lord. Woo. Yes, I'm tired, but I'm tired for Jesus this morning. God bless you, everybody. You've been listening to Morning Praise, produced and directed by yours truly, Dalton Anderson, every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. sharp. We stream live at whcr.org. In studio phone number 212-650-6903. God bless you, everybody. Had a wonderful time with you this morning and try to give a little experience of what happened in Brooklyn last night. But more importantly, a lot of you may be sad because your mother may have passed away like mine. But I can't always be sad. I'm happy that she gave me life. God bless you. Remember, if you're not on your way, you're in my way. Up it, you. Get out of the way, you. You're blocking me. Move it. Move it. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Ta-ta. Cheerio. Stay tuned for Let Your Voice Be Heard with Stanley and the gang. Is that all right? God bless.
Logical fallacy, and I know that, but you know, as always, and maybe the rest of the panel can tell you, I play a bit of the devil's advocate because I am the lone black Republican up here.
He just made a fool out of himself. I mean, you can look at Dennis Rodman and think he's making a fool out of himself.
We know Barack Obama, what he was like, anti-war, government.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
I got to jump into a rally to save a hospital here in Brooklyn in just a minute.
I stopped working on my dissertation the second my grandmother died.
I am a blazing liberal who can have a Republican-leaning ideology if you give me enough beers.
No, I got to get you that Illuminati thesaurus. Once you get that, you're going to be able to speak speaking the same language I can speak.
Now, a white person with a criminal record is more likely to get a job than a black person without one.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup.
The point of financial stability and economic justice is that you're free from confines of society and you have more freedom and to make your own choices.
Just in general, people who have money tend to have more access to resources to be able to use in their defense versus people that don't have money. So you see a lot of, lower, and that's really a class issue, and race does come into play.
This is Let Your Voice Be Heard, right here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Good morning and welcome to Let Your Voice Be Heard right here on WHCR 90.3 FM.
Are you nervous, Selena, that I'm going to interrupt you at some point during your introduction? Because if you are, I don't know why, because I don't interrupt people, Selena.
I'm going to interrupt you now to wish all the moms out there who are listening a happy Mother's Day.
Yes, happy Mother's Day if you are a mother. A lot of people keep telling me happy Mother's Day. I don't know how to take that. I don't think I look like a mother because I look really young. And
wait, that was an overhanded insult. You don't think you look like a mother because you look young?
Yeah.
So mothers aren't young?
Some mothers are young.
But no, because the thing is, like, a lot of people have mistaken me for a teenager, right? Especially what I'm wearing, if I don't have makeup on. And
Selena's going to be appearing on 16 and Pregnant next
right,
week.
Yes. Right, so that's what I'm saying. Is that what they're trying to say? Like, to say in one breath, oh, I thought you were like 18, 16, 17, or 18. And then the next breath, happy Mother's Day. So I'm just like, I don't know. Like, unless people just say it.
Mixed messaging. Yeah, I think it's become a thing where you
just say it.
It's almost like branched out from Mom's Day into kind of like a Woman's Day in some weird way. Although the focus really should be moms.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You know what really grinds in my gears? When people congratulate themselves for Mother's Day. I was seeing posts like that on Facebook all last night. I'm a great mom. Happy Mother's Day to me. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. Someone else is supposed to say that. If you're saying that you're a good mom, that's probably not a good thing because most good moms are too busy to acknowledge that because they're being moms.
See, and that all plays into what we were talking about earlier about narcissism, how our society is just so focused on ourselves and using social media to like basically be this different type of person and elevate ourselves and to look like we're great and awesome in so many ways. Like, I mean,
but
forget
what if you
compliments.
are like me? I'm like amazing.
I mean, if your ego is that big and you just feel the need to broadcast it all over, like, I mean, I look at that as kind of like I wouldn't want to seem that egotistical. I really wouldn't.
You wouldn't, would you?
No, I wouldn't, and that's why I don't take selfies. And if anyone follows me on Instagram, they will know that. And speaking of that, let me introduce myself, and I will give my Instagram.
Selena was telling me, kept pointing down at the ground. I'm still trying to figure out what she was saying with that. I don't know what she means.
Right.
I think she's telling me to turn her mic down.
No, I'm saying yours is really loud in my
earphones.
Oh,
that's your headphones, Selena.
No, it's your voice.
Selena, look at this. Oh, it's not in the red. Selena and I are arguing about sounds right now. Go ahead, Selena.
Anyway, so like Stanley keeps saying, my name is Selena, but that's Selena Hill, and on Twitter and Instagram, that's Miss Selena Hill with an MS, where you can follow me. And I'm saying, check out my Instagram if you want to, because I don't know, I'm anti-selfie, and I know that that's something like really different for our generation and millennials who are like constantly taking selfies every second of the day.
Selena, that's a huge farce. No offense, you're one of the most narcissistic people I've ever met.
Oh, please,
Selena,
Stanley.
You need to take a picture at every single event. You make it you blow it up to seem like it's the most amazing that's happening. Alyssa, am I wrong?
Stanley doesn't know.
We're still talking about this.
Stanley doesn't know the difference between between being a good publicist and promoting our brand and our show and making sure we have
what
adequate
does going
pictures.
bowling with our personal friends have to do with our brand?
That was just fun, and I wasn't even like in any of the pictures clearly. But let's move on to more important things. Like Alyssa's back. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I missed you last week. No, I really didn't.
Yeah, she was gone for like a week, Selena. You made it seem like she was gone for a month.
No, last week was my birthday, and
she turned 11, guys.
Yes, exactly. No, I turned.
Happy belated.
I won't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, after 25, you just stop telling people how old you are.
How about young enough to keep doing it and old enough to know better?
Right. That's a good way to put it.
I'm still not either one of those things.
So, yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Alyssa Fuchs. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/politically preposterous, which is the fan page, or facebook.com/Alyssa Fuchs, or on Twitter. The fan page, the Politically Preposterous fan page now has a Twitter. That's at Pol, P-O-L, Preposterous. Or you can find me at Alyssa Fuchs, and that's Alyssa with an I.
Definitely.
So definitely come give us a follow and a retweet.
Retweet us.
She's still learning about the twit thing. She doesn't know much about
I'm
it.
still thinking about Rice Krispie treats. So
that's where it came in. Okay, and Stanley's here.
Yes. It is your favorite personality because I have energy and I am always an exciting person. And Selena's
the
always
loudest
mad at me.
voice. And you're the loudest.
You just started talking and it went into the red, Selena. Watch this. When you stop talking, it stays out of the red. But anyways, my name is Stanley. I am your favorite engineer. Sometimes I'm a Republican. Sometimes I'm an idiot. Most of the times I'm brilliant.
Sometimes he looks into the camera and talks to it like he's on House of Cards.
That's right. You see camera? Now, you can follow me on Twitter at DarkSkinSwindle. Or you can follow me on Instagram as... Is it black? No, it's Stan Zaddy now. Stan, STAN_Zaddy with a Z. Like Zam Zaddy. You can follow me. We can talk about these things. I just posted a cool picture with Miley Cyrus. Yes, I love Miley Cyrus. Selena?
Were you with Miley? Did you crop yourself in the picture?
It was Miley Cyrus with a large penis.
Wow. Oh, so was that supposed to be like
it was
Stanley's?
inflatable?
No, it's not. What?
I don't know. You said you're with Miley Cyrus.
Yes, his inflatable
Yes,
thing
my inflatable
is,
white penis is with Miley Cyrus. That's exactly.
Do you remember the song Detachable Penis? You remember that?
That was a song.
Oh, from the 90s.
Ah, that explains it. The 90s has some very interesting things
I'm
happening.
telling you, go listen to this. You will laugh.
I will.
Wow.
I shall. Selena,
Is
get
it
us
on
back
YouTube?
Get us back in order.
All right. So, and if everyone would like to actually follow all of us, you can look for us on Twitter and Instagram at BeHeard_radio. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/letyourvoicebeheard. And today we have a great show where we definitely want you to let your voice be heard. There's a lot going on in the news and, with the show as well. So we're going to start off speaking about privilege. White privilege, male privilege, and just privilege itself, class privilege. We're just going to take a broader look at what privilege is, the concept, and how it affects us as millennials today. And of course, this is based on a recent story that went viral. This freshman student at Princeton decided to write an article about privilege, and he pretty much dismissed it and didn't acknowledge that being white, male, and upper middle class has anything to do with his success.
As a white man, I agree with her.
Right. And the article, it's funny. Like, he was like, well, people kept telling me to check my privilege, so I did. So he is checking his privilege, and we are going to check we're going to check privilege itself in a few more minutes. We're going to talk about that. And then later on, we will be talking about the crisis in Nigeria. We have a very special guest coming on to talk about the rise of Boko Haram. Now, we've all been seeing the campaign of Bring Our Girls Back. It's all over Twitter and social media. There's been a number of protests internationally, especially here in New York City and a number of states. A number of celebrities have also been participating. We've seen like Michelle Obama, Justin Timberlake. Everyone is talking about bringing our girls back. But you know what? We aren't really, I don't know. I haven't seen that many people taking a look at the larger issues that contributed to the rise of Boko Haram and how we've even gotten to this point of the abductions. Like, there have been a lot of issues going on in Nigeria for years on end that have been ignored, and just, us in the West, we haven't been paying attention, and the people there within that region where the girls were abducted, they have been neglected for a very long time. And we're going to take a deeper look at what's been going on and some solutions that we can take as the larger global community.
Coney 2014. Let's do it.
Is that a new campaign?
Yes.
They've been comparing the two.
That's what it is.
They've
Coney
been
2014.
They've been comparing. I've seen the originator of the Coney campaign. He has been talking about the Bring Our Girls Back campaign.
I thought he was in San Diego masturbating naked in the beach.
No, not anymore. Not anymore.
Not anymore?
He finished that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he finished. Finally.
It's always going to finish strong. So, guys, I should have been saying this earlier, but Selena, when she's doing the privilege segment, I want you guys to do our survey on our website. Does the privilege exist? Make sure you check out our survey. I'm going to tweet it out to you guys and also post it on Facebook. If you don't have either of those, it's lyvbh.com.
Or you can call us at 212-650-6903. And that's the correct number. That's not the wrong number, as Stanley gave out 2 weeks back.
Oh, yeah.
I made $200 that day. Thank you very much.
With the sex hotline.
Stanley literally gave out a sex hotline by accident.
It was an accident, guys.
Whatever. Anyway, and Alyssa, how will we be ending the show today?
So we're going to end the show talking about Greece versus Galloway. This was the Supreme Court case that was decided this week about whether it's constitutional to have legislative prayer before a town board meeting.
Right. And we spoke about this in depth a few months ago, I think back in November, actually. And now the Supreme Court has finally ruled in favor of...
Jesus.
In favor of the town.
Right, basically, in favor of the town. And not the atheist and the Jewish woman that sued or went to court.
And didn't we actually have the plaintiffs or people who were at the town hall meeting?
We had their representatives.
We had
on.
So, yeah, if you were interested in that topic back when we did it in November, you definitely want to stick around to the end of the show to hear the follow-up segment to that.
Definitely. So, again, we have a great show, and we want to hear your feedback. We want your voice to be heard. The number, again, is 212-650-6903. You can also tweet us at BeHeard_radio. Shout out to all of our loyal Twitter followers that
all
tweet
6
us.
of them.
Yeah, I know, all 6. We love you so much.
Yes.
And on Instagram, too, we've been getting a lot of reposts.
On straight flexing, right?
That's because Stanley put Miley Cyrus on Instagram.
Exactly. When you put Miley Cyrus, you will get reposts, guys. But we got to go on a quick break because Selena will kill me if we do not. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard. We're talking about Privilege, Boko, and Miley Cyrus.
We don't have to worry about nothing, 'cause we got the fire and we burning one over something. They're gonna see us from outer space, light it up like we're the stars of the human race. When the lights turn down, they don't know what they heard. Strike the march, play it loud, giving love to the world. We'll be raising our hands, shining up to the sky, 'cause we got the fire, fire, fire. Yeah, we got the fire, fire, fire. And we're gonna let it burn, 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 burn. We're gonna let it burn, 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 burn. Gonna let it burn, 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 burn. We're gonna let it burn, 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 burn. We don't wanna leave, no, we just wanna be right now, right now. And what we see is everybody's on the floor acting crazy, getting local till the lights out. Music's on.
And we are back. Are you gonna drop some bars? Are you gonna
Tic tac toe? I saw a fly.
Oh God!
Barney got shot by an FBI.
No.
Real talk.
Stick to your day job.
Right.
My day job is rapping.
Did you watch Saturday Night Live last night?
I missed it. I was.
We missed the opening segment. Charlize Theron, and it's all about how she can't sing, and so she goes through all the things that she's good at. She's like acting and this, that, and the other. But the whole byline he keeps coming back to is, "But she can't sing."
Isn't she a singer though?
No, she's not. She's an actress.
Oh, well, she's... Oh, never mind.
And she's like, and I can speak in other languages, and I have great sex, but... And then it goes back to, but she can't sing.
Oh.
I think great sex is way more important than singing, in my defense.
Well, that's what... I was going to say something, but forget it. So we are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard, where it is your chance to be heard on the issues that matter to you in politics, social justice, human rights, foreign policy. And today, privilege. Of course, when we think of privilege, a lot of people equate that to white privilege, male privilege, gender privilege. There's a lot of privilege. And something I learned today, which was really fascinating, how the term underprivileged is, honestly, it's politically incorrect. Because to say that someone is underprivileged is almost using a passive voice to act like it's just something that happened to them rather than the circumstances, the systems, the institutions that sort of place these people in positions.
This sounds like a hippie moderation of the word underprivileged.
Like
a hippie got offended because they get offended by things, so they
no,
said,
no. But the thing is, the people who have privilege, do we call them overprivileged? Do we just call them privileged?
But I think that looking for the right word, but I think this comes from the idea that when we talk about underprivileged, we generally are referring to somebody who's poor. We say like, oh, well, they come from an underprivileged neighborhood, meaning they don't have opportunity, versus when we talk about privilege, we're almost talking about mainstream, and that's really an issue, and that's kind of what we're here sort of to discuss today, about who has the privilege and why do they have it, or do they have it.
Right. So I'm going to start off just defining, again, white privilege, and then we will explore all different types of privilege. Again, if you haven't been following Tal Fort Gang, he's a Princeton student, he's a freshman, and he wrote this article that's been getting a lot of play. It became viral. Time put it on their website, and conservatives have just been running amok with it. He's been featured on Fox News, and a lot of people are saying, you know what, we're happy that this young white male is finally putting liberals in check for constantly defending people that take advantage of the government and don't take responsibility. So that's basically their argument. Yeah, no, I've heard it. Like, if you watch his interviews on Fox News, you know,
what I'll
that's
say
what they
about
say.
him personally, because I don't really, you know, I'm glad that it's kicked off a larger discussion for us to have it, but I really don't give much credence to anything he has to say. All I will say is he's a freshman at Princeton.
Right.
He's got a lot to learn and a long way to go. And, you know, spend 4 years at college and learn about socioeconomic factors and how they affect people from, I hate to use the term, but for lack of a better one, underprivileged communities, and then come back. And you know what? He may still feel that way, because there are plenty of people out there that do,
Right.
but I mean, you just, as a freshman in college, you're 18, you are young and dumb, and you have a lot to learn about the world and how it operates. So
Agreed. I'm not sure of his age, but he is a freshman. So I'm going to start off. White privilege, of course, as we've been touching upon, it's a set of societal privileges that white people benefit from beyond those commonly experienced by people of color in the same social, political, or economic spaces. And this has been a term that's been around for decades, but yet and still, I feel like there's a certain level of discomfort when you use it. Like, I remember particularly I've used the term white privilege around white people, and they were like, well, why would you say that? You're acting like I don't work hard, or my ancestors or my grandparents didn't work hard to get to the level that we're at right now. Some, you know, even if they have like inherited wealth, they'll say like, oh, well, my grandparents were self-made. They came over here in the 20s or the 30s, and they started from the bottom, and they eventually elevated in society. Of course, that does not acknowledge the legal system and the institutions that kept people of color back during those times. Like, you could not apply for housing in certain areas until 1968, until when the Housing Act was passed, and you could not go to certain schools because we had segregation, and you could not get certain loans from banks. So I mean, yeah, even back then, even if they were immigrants, even if they spoke no English, which is the same thing that happened with Tal Fort Gang and his parents.
That's the
his
least whitest name I've ever heard. Shouldn't his name
He's
be
Jewish.
Noah?
hey.
Anyway,
no, I mean it's about outside perception versus inside perception. I mean it's worth it to mention that, for example, the Irish are a group that was largely disenfranchised from the time they came over here and experienced their own set of not racism because they were white, but you know, people did not like Irish. You
They're
go
calling
back
the white N-word.
Right, exactly. And so, you know, it's not, to a certain extent, it's about race, but it's not about race. It's also about class, and it's about perception. And I think what a lot of people let get away from them when they talk about privilege is how they perceive their own privilege versus how it's perceived outside.
Mhm.
I mean, like, for example, if Stanley and I are walking down the street in Harlem, Stanley's more likely to get stopped and frisked than I am, even though, for hypothetically, I may be the one who has something illegal contraband on me and Stanley might not. But statistically speaking, I'm less likely to get stopped than Stanley.
Well, let's be objective about this, because theoretically, honestly, Alyssa, what are you? 5'1" tops?
4'11".
4'11", exactly. I'm about 5'11", 6 feet on a good day, 220 pounds, and I go to the gym a lot. So, and I'm
But I don't think
about
that's
as
why
black
you're
as
getting
his computer
stopped.
screen.
Yeah,
so the
well,
cop sees me,
that's the key.
So he sees you, then he sees me. He thinks, "Oh my God, Jaquan's got a gun." And you know what? That's probably what happens.
Let me give the number. I'm going to throw the number out there, and then I'm going to start off with a very important question. So, guys, if you want to participate in the conversation, the number is 212-650-6903. And I want to start off asking this.
Or you can tweet us at BeHeard_radio. I love doing that, Selena.
I'm going to, you know what, Silly?
What are you going to do, Selena?
If you
It
get
is
in
a
a car
Sabbath.
with me again, if you get in a car with me again, you can be very annoyed. That's all I'm going to say. I will drive with no hands again. So this is the first question we're going to start off with. Is white privilege still an issue in today's society? A lot of people say that, you know what we need to focus on is classism, and how class and lack of accessibility to certain outlets and resources is something that prohibits people from elevating or progressing in our society more so than race. So what is your opinion? Again, the number is 212-650-6903. I want to hear what you think about the question, is white privilege still an issue in today's society?
Well, it is, and this is why, is because it is about class more than it's about race. But the problem is, and it's something that I've mentioned many times, it's even my byline on the introduction when we start this show, where I say that the thing is it's about class, but that class and race play into each other. That, for example, there's a racial bias within class. People who are minorities tend to be lower classed. And so you can talk about it as a class issue, but you still have to take into account that race plays a large part of that class issue, is that generally speaking, and obviously there's, this is just the on average, white people are doing better financially in their class versus black people. Now, that's not to say there aren't black people that are very wealthy and there's not white people that are very poor. There are. But when you look at classes on the whole and you average out those numbers, you'll find that there is this differentiation within class that has to do with race.
Well, listen, people talk about this white privilege and this race privilege, but, I'm inclined to disagree with it. I think there is a class privilege, but let's be honest, there are more white people on welfare than there are black people. We have a black president. All the best athletes are black, except for in soccer where they're Spanish. And, we keep talking about this privilege, and all I see, honestly, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, this almost repulsion or just distancing from the white male. I think that what we need to acknowledge is that maybe things aren't the way that they used to be, and that we do have an advantage now, and white privilege isn't as prevalent as we thought.
Thank you for those responses. And if you want to call in and respond, the number is 212-650-6903. I actually disagree with both of you. I don't think that, I think you started to say, I think when you started off, Alyssa, you started off saying that, class is more prevalent, right? The reason why I disagree is because I had a chance to just look up some statistics. And I think that, I kind of don't want to necessarily compare the two, but I would definitely not say that class is more prevalent than race. Again, with this research, statistics show that for every dollar of wealth owned by a white person in the United States, a black person will own about a nickel. The unemployment rate, as we know, in the African American community stands at 13.2%, which is almost twice the rate of white Americans. In the public school system, for every pupil that is in a school that's predominated by African Americans or people or students of color, they will receive $733 less for every single student, which is 18% less than if that school was predominated by white children.
But the question is that because of race or is that because of class? I mean, so if you're comparing poor white children to poor black children, are the poor white children getting the same amount of resources as the poor black children? If they are, then you can say that that's an issue of class.
But if
poor black children are getting less resources than poor white children in the same class, then you could say, well, that's an issue of race. And that's what you really need to look at.
Yeah, and the thing is, they definitely intersect. But when we look at the larger picture of just how the differences between just white people and black people, regardless of their class, there are still these huge differences. And class does come into play.
That's my example of that, which is something I mentioned earlier in regards to marijuana possession. So we have a lot of information out there that white people smoke marijuana at a much higher rate. They possess it at a much higher rate than black people do. So let's talk about New York City just because we can use it as an example. So in the first quarter of this year, which is the first 3 months of the year, in Brooklyn, in the predominantly white area, Park Slope, police made 7 marijuana arrests. In Carroll Gardens and Red Hook, they made 12 marijuana arrests in the same time frame. There was 2 marijuana arrests in Wall Street, Tribeca area, 1 on the Upper East Side and 4 on the Upper West Side. Now you look at predominantly black neighborhoods in the same 3-month period. In Bed-Stuy, you had 111 marijuana arrests. In Crown Heights, you had 130 marijuana arrests. And in East New York, there was 438 marijuana arrests.
But was there more police surveillance in those areas? is?
Well, yeah, there is. That's a whole nother. I don't want to get too far off topic, but at least with this issue, if we look at the amount of marijuana arrests in a white community versus a black community, there's a blatant distinction that you can go and say, well, this is related to race, not related to class.
Well, listen, you can also say, like I just mentioned before, like the volume of police in those communities, because in East Harlem as opposed to West Harlem, where I live, there's police officers everywhere on 3rd Avenue, but if you go to Broadway, in areas that I am, you might see 2 or 3 police officers.
Right, and there's a direct correlation between those two things.
In Lexington, and you might see 1 officer around.
Well, there's a direct correlation.
So there's more police officers doing surveillance looking for crime. Wouldn't it be a big, large likelihood that you're going to have more?
Yeah, but why? The question you have to ask is why are there more police officers
in East Harlem,
predominantly black neighborhoods than there are in white neighborhoods?
Because crime is high.
Well,
you can get shot in the face.
I don't.
East Harlem.
I don't know about that, and I think that kind of speaks to the whole war on drugs, which I know, Alyssa, and we'll get more. We'll talk about that in more in depth about the legal system. But I kind of wanted to add on there because we were talking about drugs. Now, for every 1 black person that is a drug user, there are about 5 white people that are drug users. However, black people are sent to jail 10 times more than white people in general. And the thing is, when it comes to surveillance and police officers, studies have shown that there is something called racial profiling. So even if a white person has a car full of contraband or happens to be a drug dealer, because they are not suspected, they're not detected, nor are they punished for this illegal activity. But because we have racial profiling and we have systematic racism within our institutions and within, of course, the police officers and the way that they're trained, more than likely we see black people and Latinos being stopped and frisked at higher rates. And of course, if they happen to have either a gun or a small ounce of marijuana, then they'll be locked up. But the thing is, why do we have this suspicion attached to people of color, whereas with white people and people who don't, and people who even live in a different class or an affluent neighborhood, they aren't even suspected of being anything of the sort. Okay, so we have a caller on the line right now. We have Ali from Harlem who would like his voice to be heard. Good morning, Ali.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You have a wonderful topic, and the topic is, you really answered your question about gender, racism. The fact of the matter is, and I've lived in a lot of neighborhoods and throughout the United States.
Ali, can you turn your radio on? We're getting some feedback. We want to hear what you have to say, but we need you to just turn it down and then continue. Thank you. So as soon as you turn that down, you can continue.
Better now?
Okay. Yes. Well, no, all the way off, and then you can continue.
It's off now.
Okay. Hopefully that'll get a little better. Okay. So please continue. Thank you.
No, it's all over. It's random. The racism, politically, you name it, it's over. And they avoid going into the white neighborhood, like the Italian neighborhood. They won't mess with those boys out there. I know, because they shoot back. In the black neighborhoods, sometimes they do, but they know where the drugs, because they're trying to make some money in the black neighborhood. There's no jobs out here. There's nothing. And yes, to the lady who's 4'11", you brought up some beautiful statistics. And you got to understand what's going on with black, white, Spanish. No, not Spanish. Latino now. That's a big word. Just understand that. One subject of the matter is it's racism. And until the minds, the people who call themselves white, learn that it's not that way, and I have to correct this. My father told me that, and I'm a young man now, old man now. They're not white. They're Caucasian. They're not Spanish, because they didn't come over with Christopher Columbus, the Central American, whatever. They're Latinos of all different of the continent.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Ali. We definitely get the gist of your comment, and we appreciate it.
No, and I agree with him that it has to do with jobs. There really are, and there's a lack of economic opportunity in predominantly minority neighborhoods. And that creates this issue, which is why you have more crime. Because when people don't have access to jobs, then people have to eat. When they don't have access to jobs, they have to find a way to make money. And then you get into this thing where it's that people want to talk about racism versus as individual and whether somebody's individually racist, but we're not focusing on, as Selena mentioned, institutional racism. So you have a situation, and I know we're going to get into talking about the criminal justice system a little later in the segment, but I'll just briefly mention now you have a system where, you have a guy, he gets stopped and frisked, he gets a marijuana ticket. Now he can't get student loans. He can't get, the things that he needs to get the economic opportunities, to get ahead, to get a job. You have a large amount of minorities, both black and Latino people, filling up our prisons. They get out, they have felonies, they can't then get jobs. They have no choice but to end up back on the street committing crimes. So until you solve that problem of institutional racism and classism and our prison issue that we're having, which contributes to why a lot of minorities don't have jobs, then you're not dealing with you have to look at it the bigger picture issue when it comes to privilege, and those things that our guests mentioned definitely come into play when you're talking about that issue.
They definitely do. And if anyone else would like to chime in on the issue, the number is 212-650-6903. Keep those tweets coming at BeHeard_radio. We're taking a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to examine other types of privilege, like male privilege and gender privilege, and we're going to see how it affects us all in society. Stay right here on Let Your Voice Be Heard.
Que me caló tu timandila, te la pameto, la galvana, tu la peta. We be all night. You would never need another lover. Woo. Cause you a MILF and I'm a mother. Told you get a drama some, now the drama coming. I'm pour up a pumping all on your stomach, yeah. Tonight I see some super freaky hoes that could go from being a stripper to a super CEO. I don't know the way you do it, but you do it to me though. And you always told your girlfriend you a TV show. Now you got your own money, you don't need nobody else. But far as helling all that earth, I think you gon' need some help. Let me remind you, you got a great future behind you. You gotta tell me.
Greetings, this is Honey from Harlem 411. Tune in to Harlem 411 Friday nights at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for information on health, education, housing, community events, and more. Harlem 411 serves information to you with the opportunity to call in with your questions. Harlem 411, produced to serve the community's needs. Let us serve you with information. Friday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Harlem 411.
And we are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM.
The voice elevator music we were playing?
Yes, that was elevator music, wasn't it? This is the elevator music promo. Listen to the elevator.
So I wanted to bring up a last thing before we move on to talking about gender privilege and heterosexual privilege and religious privilege. I did want to mention a final thing about race and class and how that comes into play about the criminal justice system. Aside from just the number of people that are arrested and the large number of police officers within minority communities and the thing we've already talked about, you also have a issue where race and class intersect within the justice system itself when it comes to jury selection, perception of a defendant who, remember, is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, exactly. And how just the justice system, the outcomes of the justice system. And the big thing is that thing that I mentioned during the intro that we play, which is that people who have money tend to have better access to the resources they need. Remember, the government, very funny. The government, when they're prosecuting the case, essentially has unlimited resources. If you have a public defender, which usually means you obviously can't afford an attorney, which means you are in the lower class, and as I said, race comes into play with that, then your public defender, while they do a great job, they're going to defend you zealously. They don't have access to the types of resources that if you are of higher class and you can afford a great attorney. Like, look at somebody like Dominique Strauss-Kahn, the head of the International Monetary Fund. He got acquitted.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, he had all the money in the world to hire the best lawyers, the best investigators, use all these resources to put towards his case. Somebody who gets arrested on the street and charged with the sexual assault, and gets a public defender, they don't get the access to the best lawyers. And I'm not saying that the public defenders are bad lawyers. It's not that they're bad lawyers. In fact, most of the public defenders I know are amazing lawyers. They're just, as Stanley said, overworked. They're carrying 120 cases. They don't have the time to put full attention towards one case like Dominique Strauss-Kahn's lawyer could. So there's all those factors that come into play with the justice system. And when you have a lawyer that's carrying 120 cases versus a lawyer who's only focusing on your case, then you're not going to get as good a representation, even if you have the best public defender there is.
Yes.
So it's just a time issue. So, and all those things come into play into the outcome. And one last thing that I'll mention about this starts with bail. It's easier to fight a case from outside of jail than it is from in jail. Yet when you set $2,500 bail on somebody who has money, they can make that $2,500 bail easily and fight the case from outside. When you set $2,500 bail on somebody who doesn't have a pot to piss in, then they're not going to be able to make that bail.
And that's why
they're going to be waiting in jail. But
not white privilege.
No, it's class privilege, but race comes into play in that discussion.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Alyssa. And I just wanted to read really quickly one or two comments that we're getting on Twitter. People, well, Chris, who is our writer on letyourvoicebeheardradio.com, he tweeted something really important. And he said, voter ID laws, attacks, lawsuits against Voter Rights Act and affirmative action, those also are reasons why white privilege is still a very real issue in today's society.
I would say that's an obvious sign that racism is still an issue, and maybe even that the Republican Party may be stupid, but they're not dumb, so they want to stop African Americans and Latino people from voting. But I don't think that's a sign of white privilege, because somebody who's white could also be disenfranchised by some of these voter outreach laws, especially if they are poor and they are in a community where they don't have IDs.
I think it goes more towards stopping liberals and Democrats from voting, and that it just so happens that, generally speaking, minorities make up a large portion of the Democratic Party. So it's that interplay between two separate issues.
It is the interplay, but those laws statistically do disenfranchise more people of color.
Well, yeah.
So the thing is, if you happen to be a white person with a middle class background and you do have those privileges in our society, then you aren't being affected by these laws, which are targeted against Democrats and people of color and people that vote on the left.
Advocate, I agree with you, but just to play devil's advocate, the voter ID laws also affect a disproportionate number of elderly people,
right?
Both black and white, and so then you have an issue of privilege, of age privilege. Just give you two quick comments on Politically Preposterous. Morgan Goldstein says race, class, and gender unfortunately all play a factor. It's true in the society. And Merlin Biffle says it's all about money. Everything else is just a factor of how likely you are to have money, which is kind of exactly what we're saying about the intersection between race and class, and race being a factor in how much money you have.
I'm really glad that you brought up you read those two comments, because there are different types of privilege, and like Alyssa just said, and that the person that left that comment, you do have race, you do have class, you do have sex, then you have sexual orientation, then you have gender identity, and you also have citizenship. I know some people who are undocumented. They are brilliant, they are 100% competent, but they cannot get a job because they don't have the legal papers.
Yeah, they don't have the privilege of being a citizen because they came here illegally. What is?
But then you have to ask the further question: did they come here legally on their own accord, or were they brought here illegally as children?
No, you're right, but it's still the case that they're not citizens. That's not a
right, but by no fault is their own. Your comment relates
by no
people.
fault of the countries either.
Well, your comment comes off in such a way that it makes it seem as if they purposely did something illegal, and there people are out there who have purposely done something illegal. But I don't think we should categorize them in the same place as we categorize people who were brought here as children who had no say in whether they came here legally or not.
But the fact remains that they're not citizens, and if they're not citizens, look, That's how the game is played.
Right. Well, I get that, which is a larger discussion about why we need immigration reform. But obviously, that's not the topic today, so we don't want to veer too far off topic.
But we're talking about privilege. You just want to give everybody a privilege or make them not privileged. Well, do I have privilege because I'm 5'11" and you're 5, maybe, Selena?
You know what?
I have height privilege. Seriously, guys, we got to get to a point where it's just like, all right, this world sucks in a lot of ways.
Right.
What can you do to address it? Now, what's the next privilege now? Water privilege? Because my water's cold and yours is room temperature.
I'm just having a hard time taking Stanley seriously right now. No, I mean you bring up some arguments.
This is like
that
hippie logic.
Where do we draw the line? Is what it comes down to. What's privilege and what's not? But
these idiots don't want to vaccinate their kids because doctor privilege. This is
no
stupid.
No one's saying that. These are very real things and realities for people. And the thing is, if you're not born white, male, cis, and in a middle class background, then you will suffer different disadvantages in our country, economically, socially, and politically.
So
our
you should feel bad for being white then.
No, you should not feel guilty. That's the thing when it comes to white privilege. We're not saying that people who are born white should feel guilty about or apologize.
Here's the thing, and you have to draw. This is where it is that people are inherently unequal. For example, you're stronger than I am. You know, she's taller than I am. There's inherent unequalness between people. You have people are taller, shorter, stronger, thinner, whatever. Wealthier, poorer, but the key is that people are inherently unequal, but the law has to treat people equally. So under the law, you should be treated equally. And that actually goes all the way back to Abraham Lincoln. And obviously you can go watch the movie Lincoln. It's a theatrical representation of what happened during that time, but it's something that's a theme throughout the movie and just generally speaking throughout history, which is that there are differences between races and classes, but under the law, we all should be treated equally.
Right, and thank you so much for that. Very well put, Alyssa. And it does boil down to that. It's again,
even within the law, there's always going to be mitigating circumstances where it's just not feasible to do so.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that in our system and in our society, we shouldn't treat people differently because they were born of a certain sex or a certain to have a certain sexual orientation. Like in every single state, if you happen to be gay, you will be at a disadvantage.
We shouldn't treat people differently because they were born poor versus being born rich. That's my whole point, which is there's obviously an inequality between a rich person and a poor person. To say that those two people are equal when it comes to monetary speaking would be incorrect. They're not equal. One's rich and one's poor. But in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of society, those two people should have the same amount of political influence, the same amount of say, but they don't. I mean, we can talk about money in politics forever and how people who have money have more influence in politics, and we can get into a large discussion about Citizens United and all that stuff, and I know we have before. But it goes back to the same thing, which is even with inherent inequalities, you still have to find a way for people to be treated equally in the eyes of society, in the eyes of the law.
Right.
This is why I like sports. If you suck, that's just it.
Right. It's based on merit.
Right. So we have a caller on the line. We have Miss Dolores, who would like to let her voice be heard. Good morning.
Good morning. I would just like to add, we put a lot of emphasis on white and black. To tell you the truth, black has no origin, and neither does white. And there are no white people. These are European people. And when we call them white, we are validating their so-called superior. They, we upgrade that. I think these people should be called by what they are. And it should be a land base connected to who you are. We are African people over here in America, and we are directed to that land. These so-called white people are from Europe. And that's their land base. If we would get over this white and black, because there are no white people. The only person that I've ever seen that was white was Michael Jackson, and that was after he had surgery. And I think we got to do away with the word white, because this adds to their superiority, and that nobody is superior. African people are the original people, the first civilization. And we should deal with society like that. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Loris. I just want to say two things. First of all, yes, Michael Jackson, was the only white person I've ever seen as well. But you can't say that. This show broadcasts in Harlem. We trying to get his jump on Pookie in them. You know that.
Oh, goodness.
Black community loves Michael Jackson. You can't be saying
I think
that
everyone.
kind of
I think the world loves Michael Jackson.
I think she has an interesting point. Is that it's not so much. We shouldn't refer as black versus white as a racial thing, but as an ethnicity thing. African versus European versus Asian. It's an interesting point to consider.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I don't think that, and I'm very happy that she called in. If anyone else would like to let your voice be heard on the topic, the number is 212-650-6903.
Or you can tweet us at BeHeard_radio.
Right. Thank you for that, Stanley. No, I mean, it is interesting, but the thing is, those realities do exist. Well, if you happen to be someone of black and brown skin, regardless of what you want to call yourself, like if you identify as Black American as I do, or just simply black, or if I don't, then it doesn't really matter when it comes to even applying for jobs. Like there was this one social study that showed that if you're applying for a job, but your name sounded more black and ethnic than it did white, then you are less likely to get a job. So I mean, and that's just the bottom line when it comes to having this white privilege. And again, it's not something that you should feel shameful or guilty about. It's just acknowledging it. The only thing that I think people need to be take accountability and responsibility for is just being aware of it, being aware of your privilege. Everyone has a privilege, even when it comes to education.
What about women privilege? How come you guys can get into bars and clubs for free, and guys can buy you drinks, and I had to pay double just to be in the same room with you?
This is why I can't take Stanley serious.
Let's talk about women privilege.
Don't jump ahead real quick, because I have a response to something you said earlier that it really is worth mentioning. You made a comment about sports and merit and how it's based on merit, and I agree with you. However, there's one big thing that you're not taking into account, which is who is better. The people who are better at sports are when you have a situation where you have a kid whose parents have money, so they send him to basketball camp, they send him to all these training camps and things that cost a lot of money, and after school program and this, that, and the third, and so why is he good at basketball or any other sport? He's good because his parents have had the money to send him for the training so that he can get better, versus somebody who doesn't have parents that have affluence, that have money. How does he learn basketball? Well, maybe he learns it on the streets or whatever. Now, you know what? It may turn out that when it comes down to merit, the kid who learned on the streets is just as good as the kid who went to basketball camp. But when you have a situation where if you have more money to spend on pushing your kid and giving them the training and the resources they need, then they end up being better. And so it's not just about merit.
No,
class comes into it.
I tell you this because I played basketball for a good part of my life. If you can ball, people will see and you will get noticed.
That's not my point.
And there's a lot of people who they've never been to AAU or these other camps, but they can play. And when you play, especially when you get a chance to play on a team, like organized team, like a high school team or a junior high school team, then you were good. And what really the big deciding factor is what college you get to go to, and that is the issue of whether education and the scores you can get to go to that school. Now, if you would have said that, and even in basketball, you have players who are not as fast, who are not as tall, who are not as strong. Allen Iverson, who a perfect example of that, was 5'11", and he's not the strongest person. He did not like to practice, but he played hard. And he's good at it. And that's why he's one of the best players.
You're going too much on to merit. I agree. I agree. There's a point at which there's a differentiation, and that even if you didn't have the resources, you can still be just as good as somebody who did. I acknowledge that.
Right.
What I'm saying is, if you come from a background where your family has the resources, then they can put you in a position to give you a leg up to make you a better sports player. Now, that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be better. Your parents could put all the resources in the world into you being better at a certain sport, and you could still suck.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is if you're given the opportunities and the resources to go to camp and go to these practice trainings and all these other things, then you're more likely to be better at the sport because you've had the special training that somebody else hasn't.
Right. And on that note, I don't know where the time went, but we are going to have to wrap it up. I want to give everyone a chance to just last and final statements that they may have on the issue of privilege itself. Stanley, do you want to go first?
Yes, I do want to go first. Thank you so much, Lena. Everyone's always talking about this privilege and how somebody has it better than someone else and all this other nonsense. Let me tell you something. Whether privilege is a real thing or not, and we'll assume it's real right now, no one cares enough to change it. So you got two options. You can keep talking about white privilege and male privilege and gender privilege and fruit privilege and water privilege and talk about how hard you have it, or you can start doing something to either get in the same wave as them or get ahead and then change it. But these circular conversations do nothing but just tick off the people who have the privilege and annoy people like me who hate hippies.
Thank you for that opinion.
I tend
Stanley.
to disagree
Right.
with that, which is, you can and should do everything you can to get
Right.
ahead, but there are still, until we deal with the institutional problems within our system that affect people based on class and based on race, then some people are not going to have the opportunity to get ahead. And that's just how it is. I mean, I'm inclined to think that it's more class and socioeconomic than it is race, but that race is a factor within class and socioeconomics, and that's why we have an issue of privilege, where you see race being pervasive within the issue of class.
Right. Thank you for that, Alyssa. And just to comment to what Stanley was saying, he's right. There are a handful of different privileges that people have in society, and it's almost like winning a lottery. Like if you were born a certain way, even if you were born skinny, our society says that thinner people are more attractively appealing. I mean, regardless of like the health benefits, but even if you don't look a certain way and happen to take up like more space, there's a lesser chance that you would even be able to get a job or succeed in certain ways and have certain opportunities. And again, sometimes it's just genetics. But I think that the larger scope of things about taking responsibility and accountability, we all do need to do that. But I don't think that we should just dismiss different societal obstacles that that put certain people at a disadvantage and give other people an upper hand or a leg up. And the whole thing about racism, again, and this goes back to what the Princeton student wrote about. It doesn't have to be overt racism. You don't have to say things like stupid things like Cliven Bundy said or Donald Sterling. But the fact of the matter is that it does exist. Racist boundaries and this structure form exists. I mean, it's only been 50 years since segregation was still legal in our country, and it was just 4 or 5 different generations ago where certain people's ancestors were still enslaved. So this institution has already been formed, and it's here in our society. But I do believe that it's up to us to not only be educated and aware about it, but to use whatever privilege that we may be afforded, even if you have the privilege to read and to be educated and access to a smartphone where you can Google things. These are certain privileges that people around the country just simply don't have. But if you have it, like I have, a certain number of these privileges, it's up to us to spread this awareness and to help other people. And that's how I look at everything on a larger scope of things. So we're going to take a break there. We're going to come back to the news roundup, and later on the show we will be talking about the rise of the Boko Haram.
Coney 2014.
I'm so fresh, man. Man, y'all scared to do it how I do it.
I'm in the club, high up perk with some shades on. Tatted up, mini skirt with my J's on.
In the club, high up perk with some shades on. Tatted up, mini skirt and my J's on.
J's on my feet, you know. J's on my feet, you know. J's on my feet, you know. So get like me. J's on my feet, you know. J's on my feet. J's on my feet. So get like me.
I be in the club, standing on the couch, in the wolf gray, like it's my house. Drinking out the bottle, I got no respect. Looking like a model, who just got a check. I back it up, cause I don't give a fuck. If you were lame, that's a shame, you can't hang with us. I'm MC Hammerfly, you can't touch. Jay so fly, I should work at Flight Club. Put on my jammies to dance the whole night away. I'm naughty by nature, like I'm hip-hop parade.
All in together now. We can make it better now. Come on, can we do it?
Yeah, you know that we can.
We'll rope it up,
Cause we know how to jump.
we'll roll it out,
Cause we know how to skate.
we'll cut it down,
Cause we know what to eat.
we'll swap it out.
We eat healthy stuff.
Can we do it?
Yeah, you know that we can.
Can we do it?
Yeah, you know that we can.
Yeah, well come on.
Today's a good day to grab your kids and hang out with them for an hour. Dance, walk, play a sport, or cook a healthy meal. Because just moving a little and eating better every day can help make you and your child healthier.
Can we do it?
Yeah, you know that we can.
We'll ball it up,
Cause we know how to hoop.
we'll mess around,
Cause we know how to play.
we'll drop it down,
Cause we know how to dance.
we'll veggie dog, veggie night and day. Can we do it?
Search We Can online to find doable tips and activities that you can use every day to keep you and your kids healthy. Remember, that's We Can. A message from the Ad Council, HHS, and NIH's We Can program.
And we are back. So before we get into the news roundup, I'm just going to, wrap up with a final thought that I had in response to Selena's wrap up of our last segment, which is that if we really want to deal with the issue of privilege, we need to deal with the issue of income inequality, because income inequality leads to the differentiation between class, and that is what we should be focusing on when we're talking about who has the privilege in this country. But on that note, speaking of privileges that some people in this country have and other people in this country do not have, Arkansas actually started issuing same-sex marriage couples marriage certificates over at the end of the week. A court in Arkansas ruled that the ban on same-sex marriage violates the Arkansas Constitution based on the Supreme Court's ruling in the DOMA case last year. They said that their constitutional ban was inconsistent with the federal Constitution. And so now the court essentially legalized same-sex marriage. Some marriage licenses have been issued. I expect there's at some point to be a stay and for it to get cut off. And ultimately, as you know, there's many of these types of cases pending in many different states, and the Supreme Court is going to have to rectify this issue at some point next year.
Punching it, though.
Speaking of same-sex marriage, so I saw that there's actually a different angle. Of course, we know there's a lot of advocacy around same-sex marriages, same-sex marriage, and just LGBT rights. And there's this really unique perspective that this clergy member is taking. So he is I'm not sure what his sexual orientation is, but at his church he has a number of gay people that attend, and they want to actually get married. And because he lives in a state that does not permit same-sex marriage, he's saying that it's violating his rights,
his religious rights.
Right,
it's a really interesting case.
Right, it is very interesting, and it's very unique because he's talking from the perspective of, as a clergy member, he preaches. Especially like a lot of pastors will preach abstinence until you are married. So if he's telling his congregation, if you love each other, God says you should be married, yet and still he cannot marry people of the same sex.
He just filed a lawsuit. It's very interesting. It's the first one like this where he essentially says that the state's same-sex marriage ban violates his freedom of religion.
Right.
Because one thing that he has to do as a religious person is marry people, and that because of the same-sex marriage ban, he wants to marry people within his congregation, but he can't.
Yep.
And therefore the state is interfering with his religious beliefs and his religious practices. And it's the first case that has used the First Amendment religious guarantees in this context to say that we should be able to have same-sex marriages. So it's very interesting.
He is going to burn in hell.
I feel like this is the gay news roundup. I know we have some really interesting football gay news that Stanley's going to tell us about.
Speaking of gay, Michael Sam, the first...
Speaking of gay.
Sorry, Michael Sam.
Michael Gay. Not just call Michael Gay.
It isn't me, guys. I'm not a homophobe, I swear. Michael Sam, I guess you could say the first outwardly gay professional football player, was drafted in the 7th round by the St. Louis Rams. But my favorite moment of the draft, when they showed him in a hotel with like his face, I thought, don't judge me, I thought I didn't recognize him, so I'm like, who's this guy surrounded by all these white people, and why are they all hugging? And then he kissed him. I was like, oh, it's Michael Sam. And there was some guy at the we were at Corner Social. I was there with Selena, another friend of ours, and some guy was like, nah, man, that's messed up. Nah, man, nah. And
I thought it was a really amazing moment.
It was cute. Now it's all over the papers. But I'd like for a day to come where it's just not a big deal. Like Michael Sam likes men. Some other people in the NFL probably like men too.
Oh, they
Go
definitely
into a dog
do.
pile.
Listen, I was saying the NFL is like the most homoerotic sport.
Yes.
You got men in like these tight things, and they're like smacking each other on the butt when they make a good play. I mean, listen, there's definitely some other gay guys in the NFL.
There's some butt grabbing too. Like,
well, speaking of the NFL draft, I was telling Stanley, I was telling him yesterday that there's this one player named Clinton Dix who is getting a lot of...
That sounds like a sex toy.
His first name is and he's getting a lot of... He's getting a lot of buzz because he has also been drafted. Look, I know nothing else about him except for his name. That's the only thing I can remember.
His name is Clinton. Did his parents hate him?
I don't know.
Parents,
I don't know.
Mothers, happy Mother's Day, but you hold your child in your stomach for 9 months.
It's not a stomach.
And whenever you hold him in your uterus for 9 months, why would you then name your child Who are you?
I don't know. I would love to hear his backstory.
What's that Kanye line? couldn't afford a car, so,
So
he named
name
his
Alexis-
daughter
yeah.
Alexis.
There we go.
Yeah, but
she
this
couldn't
just
afford
has-
to laugh, so she named her son Haha.
Makes absolutely no sense. Okay, so
Yes, his name
speaking
does make no
of
sense.
laughing hysterically, there are now pot vending machines in Vancouver. So we know that there's a pot vending machine in Colorado that opened up. Of course, we know that now it's legal. Recreational marijuana is legal in Colorado. But now in Vancouver, there's this new pot vending machine. And I had a chance to take a look at it via YouTube.
You were in Vancouver?
No, unfortunately. So I looked at it via YouTube, and it sells all of these different packets of marijuana. Like they have
Sour D's?
like they have Master Kush.
Oh, they got Afghan Kush?
They have every type of marijuana in these tightly sealed plastic bags,
Mhm.
and I think that they're sold for $50 per ounce.
Wait,
they're all high
ounce.
grade. Yeah, they're all high grade,
That's not
and
bad.
a lot of it is medical pot. Oh, a lot of
Sour
it-
D's medical pot?
Well. I mean,
Wait,
it's for people who you have to have a prescription to actually use the vending machine.
Really? So
Yeah.
like, how did they? Never mind.
Well, you have to show them your card before you're allowed to, come to the vending machine.
I'm sure that's
It's within a it's in a dispensary. I think they might just I don't know how strict they are about
Mm-hmm.
regulating or not, but
If there was a weed vending machine over here in Harlem, that joint would be broken every other day. I have a story. Speaking of black people, President Barack Obama was grossly offended by North Korean news, who wrote an article that was about 175% racist. And I have a small clip of the article right here that I want to read to you guys, and you can tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 how racist it actually is.
okay.
So it says, you can also tell this by his appearance and behavior, and while it may be because he is a half-breed, one cannot help thinking the more one sees him that he has escaped from the monkey's body.
What? Read that again, Stanley.
Sure. You can also tell this by his appearance and behavior, and while it may be because he is a crossbreed, one cannot help thinking the more one sees him that he has escaped from a monkey's body.
And who wrote that? Who
The
said that?
North Korean news.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at that.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how racist was that?
11.
I rated Clive Bundy racist.
Yes, it is Clive and Bundy racist.
And
I
guys,
agree to that.
Give us a call with your comments and, news stories. By the way, we didn't do that before. The number is 212-650-6903. Again, that number is 212-650-6903. And since we're talking about the news, I figured I would give you guys a very interesting news story. This came out earlier in the week, but scientists may have found a way to reverse aging.
Really?
I'm so serious. And you know what I thought of when it was in Policy Mike, by the way.
Okay.
You know what I thought of when I saw that? When I see you could reverse your aging, the movie with Justin Timberlake and that really hot blonde girl, when you didn't age by you aged by time.
By time. Oh, yeah. That's called In Time.
In Time, yeah. I don't know how good or bad that movie was. It looks like it was probably a bad movie, but yes, I feel like that's what's happening.
I think that celebrities with privilege and access and money, they almost seem to fight aging really well. I mean, they get a lot of Botox and a lot of plastic surgery.
It's called cocaine, Selena.
Whatever they're doing, if we had access to it, I think that the rest of us would age a little better as well.
That's funny that you mentioned cocaine, because that brings up a big point we didn't talk about last time in the last segment, which is the differentiation between cocaine sentencing and crack
Right.
sentencing, and how that plays into race and inequality. Interesting point.
Interesting.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
So speaking of drugs, here's somebody that's not on drugs but says things like he might be on drugs. So Mitt Romney came out against a number of his Republican colleagues in support of raising minimum wage to $10.10. As we know, the Senate Republicans, they just shot down the bill. President Obama has been campaigning around raising minimum wage, but Republicans, for some reason, we know their reasons and their arguments, they're simply saying no. And Democrats, we know, will be running midterm elections on the issues of minimum wage. But the thing is about Mitt Romney, when he was governor of Massachusetts, he was for raising minimum wage, and he was even when he ran in his first presidential election, he was for raising minimum wage. However, in January 2012, when he got a lot of pressure from conservatives, all of a sudden he flip-flopped. We know him for being a notorious flip-flopper. So all of a sudden he flip-flopped and he said, you know what, I'm not I don't think that we should raise minimum wage right now. I mean, I know we haven't raised it in how many years, but it's not really hurting anybody. And now that he's not a president, I mean, now that he's not a candidate anymore, he's back to his old ways, and he says that we should raise it.
A couple of things. One, we should not listen to anything Mitt Romney says. Mitt Romney has no backbone or stands for anything. And Mitt Romney will pretty much stand for whatever the polls tell him to. He's not a real candidate. He's not someone you can take seriously as a leader,
right,
unless it's making you billions of dollars
Mitt
in a
who?
corporation. Mitt Romney is also what I would like to call a level 6 idiot, which isn't bad compared to the level 10 idiots in the Republican Party. On the other hand, the minimum wage debate is a slanted one, because in some places you don't need to raise the minimum wage because the cost of living doesn't need it. Do you need to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour in Arizona, where with $11 an hour working 40 hours a week, you can live very comfortably?
But is anyone...
Now, listen, I have my theory on this is that the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, states can make their own decisions about how high they want to go, but the federal minimum wage should, at the very minimum, keep pace with inflation. The fact of the matter is, $7.25 is inadequate when you account for inflation. So if you account for inflation, then the minimum wage would be $10.17, and that's what it should be nationally. Whether the cost of living is high or the cost of living is low, it should keep pace with inflation. Now, if other states, cities, municipalities want to raise it even higher, that's their issue. I think they should have the freedom to reject that or to do that, but federally speaking, there should be a blanket thing, and we should say that inflation matters. We should keep pace with inflation. Now, obviously, we could have a larger conversation about inflation and why it occurs and X, Y, and Z, but ultimately, we need to raise the minimum wage to keep pace with inflation.
Agreed. So, speaking of minimum wage, I actually have a news story about someone who's making a hell of a lot more money than minimum wage, and that is Dr. Dre. So, on Friday, he announced via a homemade video with Tyrese Gibson that he will be the first billionaire in hip-hop. So,
is he going to put another album out?
Right. Forget the album.
We've been waiting 10 years.
Right. Forget the albums. I mean, he's a legendary music producer, and I mean, his influence is just phenomenal in hip-hop on a general scale. However, Apple is slated to close a deal and purchase Beat Electronics, which is a high-end headphones and streaming music service. Of course, we know they produce the Beats by Dre's headphones that everyone wears, the big ones. And so Apple is slated to close the deal for $3.2 billion. And because Dr. Dre owns about a 25% stake in that company, that could very well push him, it might push him above the $1 million mark to the $1 billion mark.
It'll push him to about $800 million.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that what the statistics show?
Yeah.
Well, he'll be higher than Diddy on the Forbes list of He'll be higher on both of them on the on Forbes hip hop top list of wealthiest people. So we have on the line with us Rob from Cincinnati, who would like to let his voice be heard. Good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, this is Ralph from Cincinnati. 30 seconds. Well, Stanley, you can't take that comment serious about, underneath the president's skin is a monkey and this, that, and the other. Because if you really notice, underneath the skin of a dog or a monkey, it's pale. It's white. It's not white, but it's pale. Pale skin. It's like, black skin is natural. Underneath a dog or a monkey, it's pale skin. So, that's the missing link. So it's like a homo, faggot, a Spanish fix.
All right, that is enough, sir.
Yeah, we can't use profanity or any insulting terms like that.
All right, I know. Wow.
Please respond, Stanley.
Thank you for your comment, Rob. I want to just be very clear that we do not believe or associate with that kind of language towards any group at all.
We don't.
Rob was making a comment about the articles that I mentioned, in which North Korea was making some very disparaging comments towards President Obama, and then he made some very disparaging comments towards homosexuals and Latinos, which was just... Wow.
We're going to have to leave it there. But we do appreciate people calling in and letting their voice be heard, as long as you're saying things that are respectful.
Don't let your racist voice be heard.
Right. Hey, better way to put it.
Money
The number to call in again is 212-650-6903. You can also tweet us at BeHeard_radio. And I mean, speaking of Clive and Bundy, I mean, that whole debacle... I mean, I think it kind of got a little swept underneath the rug this week because we're paying attention to more important things, thank God, like bringing back our girls.
there's more to it. So there's beef at the Bundy Ranch between all of the gun nuts. Apparently, they all got scared because they heard that President Obama was going to drop a drone on them, like I suggested, because they're stupid. And then, like, apparently, like, the main security guy who was working for free was like, well, you guys have to leave here now and go to hotels because we don't want you on a ranch anymore. And now there's been infighting. Alyssa, you want to say something? I saw you coming up to the mic.
I was just going to say, like, this has really gotten out of hand. And, I'm going to go back to the same thing I mentioned the week we talked about it, which was if this was a group of Occupy Wall Street people, they would have sent the police in, like, 3 days later and dragged them out just like they did at Zuccotti Park. And, mind you, obviously, Occupy people didn't have guns because in New York City, they all would have been arrested immediately versus in the middle of the desert in Nevada where, the guns they have are legal, but that doesn't mean that they should be there occupying this land and that they should stay. And you know what? If they want to have a grievance over the taxes, that's fine. Let's have a discussion about whether or not those grazing fees should be charged. But ultimately, they can't just act in this lawless manner. And furthermore, most importantly, the people of Bunkersville don't want them there.
They don't.
It's just like the people of the families of Benghazi don't want the GOP to continue to perpetuate this false scandal, and not only that, to raise money off of it, which is just disgusting, especially since the guy who's been appointed to head up this special committee said, well, I'm not going to be raising any money off of this Benghazi tragedy. I just want to investigate it. And then 2 seconds later on his website, his staffers are posting up, join us in investigating this by giving money. So you know what? It's like,
And the thing is, they always say that we don't want to associate Benghazi with any type of politics. It's about the Americans that died. Yet and still, what they're doing is they're playing politics. And again, like Alyssa said, they're raising money for their party, which is horrible.
For those of you who are a little bit lost, what we're talking about is the Republican Party has created yet another committee to investigate Benghazi. It's the Benghazi Elite now? What is it called?
I don't even know what it is. Who cares? Like, the thing is, over and over they try to repeal Obamacare, and now they're just trying to go after a scandal that simply does not exist. Like, I don't know. If this works for the GOP, that is what's going to be really bothersome.
Well,
for
that's
me.
what you're missing. They know it's not going to work with like people who read and think critically.
It's going to work with their base.
There we go.
But the problem is right now the fact of the matter is between 8 and 10 people in this country 8 and 10% of the people in this country, which is about 8 to 10 people out of 1,000 people, identify as being independent or not affiliated with a party. No, I'm just saying people who are not affiliated with a party, they have to be courted every election year by one side or the other. And while the Benghazi thing is going to help the GOP with their base, it's not going to help them court independents who want them to focus on things like tax reform, jobs, and income inequality. So, you know what? They can keep beating the drum of Benghazi over and over and over again, but ultimately that's only helping them with their base. It's not going to help them with the 8 to 10% of people that identify as independents that they need to court in order to win elections.
And the growing population. Our country is more diverse than ever. We have a large number of Latinos, and we have new and young voters who just turned 18. I mean, in talking about like beating the drum or beating a dead horse, this whole Monica Lewinsky scandal that they brought back up and just trying to put so much focus. Like, we know Monica Lewinsky, she published a new article in Vanity Fair, but I feel like Republicans are trying to use this to attack Hillary Clinton. And I feel like it almost puts her at an advantage because you know what? I'd rather Hillary Clinton come and address and talk about what happened and put this in her past. This way, when we get closer to 2016, hopefully she won't have to reiterate the same points that she can make right now. So, I mean, with the GOP, I never really understand them. And I just hope that is shown come elections, midterms, in November.
That's because you know how to read. But guys, we got to go on a break.
Okay.
When we come back, we will be talking about bringing our girls back home. Not American girls, Nigerian girls. And we'll be having a very interesting conversation about this. As you guys know, if you've been listening, I've been shouting out Stop Coney 2014. I know I'm not being a jerk. Yeah, I probably am. But it's for a reason. Anyways, we're going on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about those good old girls. That sounds really sexist. And mine. That was cool, right?
That's a hit song. I like that
You
song.
don't even know the words.
So you know what? You watch your mouth, Alyssa. It
You
is all
don't.
beat, all right? Thank you very much. Guys, we are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard on 90.3 FM WHCR, the voice of Harlem. And now we are on to the topic that everyone has been talking about for days, even weeks. And we're on to the topic that has taken over Instagram, Facebook, Skonex, Vine, Pinterest, and everything you can think of, that has become so big that even the First Lady, Michelle Obama, has gotten involved in it and will be giving the president's weekly address to discuss it. And she took a picture with the sign that said "Save our girls and bring our girls home." I forgot which one.
Bring
it said.
our girls back. Yeah.
I can't remember because everyone's been remixing the pictures and putting "Stop killing people with drones" and other things in there too. Yeah, it's been really weird. But anyways, we are here to discuss the topic of bringing back our girls. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, there were over 200 young ladies who were in school prepping for an exam in Nigeria who were kidnapped by the terrorist group Boko Haram. So I will give you some background information. Forgive me for reading, but sometimes leaders do have to read. All right. So on the day of the kidnapping, these girls aged between 16 and 19 years of age were taking their final exams before graduating and beginning their university education. Schools in the area had been closed, but the school authorities, for whatever reason, had decided to open a school for the exams, and which was conducted by the West African Examination Council. It turns out that the order to open the school came directly from the governor of the state, Governor Kashim Shettima of Borno State, where the Boko Haram originated. And as the article goes on to say, in fact, according to the head of WAEC in Nigeria, the examination council had warned the governor not to have the examination held in that school, but to choose a school in a safer area. And the governor decided to ignore this. What ended up happening was the Boko Haram army came in on their own, and they came in there dressed as military people, and they told the school officials that, hey, because it's getting a little dangerous over here, we're going to take some of these young ladies to get them out to safety. School, not realizing anything weird was going on, helped them to get on this truck, and by the time they were already loaded on there, that's when they Boko Haram started to show their true colors by shooting in the air and setting the building on fire, and they kidnapped over 200 young ladies from this school. And how we come into play in this is because the Nigerian government has failed miserably in finding these women and even making this a priority up until it became such a big push from Nigerian activists and people in that region who have really been pushing for it. To help us to kind of understand this topic better is and I'm very honored to say that we're speaking to Dr. Chika Oniani, and he is the publisher and editor-in-chief of the award-winning African Sun Times. He is also the author of the internationally and critically acclaimed book Capitalist N-Word. I'm not going to say what it really says, and The Road to Success, as well as the blockbuster novel Broader Bond Conspiracy. He is also the person whose article I was referencing to just now when we're talking about what's happening over there with the Boko Haram and the 200 plus women who are missing. So to get this thing going, I want to just say welcome and thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Oniani.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem. We're happy to have you. Yes. So just let's get this ball rolling right away. Just for the listeners who may not know exactly what's going on right now, can you give us a little bit more background information on top of what I've already offered?
You read the article I had written in terms of explaining the background of what has been going on, the kidnapping of 76 girls, 43 or so who had escaped were not really in the hostel when the Boko Haram arrived. So we are talking of 234 girls still unaccounted for. As you rightly said, when this happened, there was one of the girls had said 80 of them. In fact, they had put the figure at 129 girls, but one of the girls who had escaped said 80 of them escaped. And unfortunately, the Nigerian army said only 8 of the girls were left unaccounted for until the school principal corrected the figure and said that is not true. Only 14 girls escaped. And already the Nigerian army had made a big mistake and had given a lie to how many students were left. So that is what is happening, and until this outpouring of sympathy from the international community. The Nigerian government had not really paid too much attention to it, because even yesterday the World Economic Forum on Africa ended in Nigeria in Abuja. But the president said, in fact, the fact that the forum held was because of the fact that the Boko Haram realized that it was a way to assure the international community that Boko Haram was on the run. But if the Boko Haram was on the run, another 300 and another 300 people were killed on Monday or so, after the government troops had gone there. And then the Boko Haram went and told them, that they know where the Boko Haram was. And the army left there, and the Boko Haram came back and killed 300 people. And so that is what is going on. Only yesterday, the president announced that two of the culprits responsible for the bombing on the same day that the girls were killed, in the morning on the 14th of May. We should remember that there was a big bombing at a motor park in outside Abuja, and many people were killed. There are people who claim more than 200 people were killed, but the government is saying that 84 people were killed. It was the same night. The bombing occurred in the morning, and the same night of the 14th, the 15th, that the Boko Haram kidnapped these girls. So the government announced yesterday that two of the culprits had been apprehended.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. So now I want to backtrack just a little bit to go over the historical, just the historical background of this, because in America, at least, we've really been focusing on are these young ladies who were kidnapped, and rightfully so. Obviously, you never want to, you always want to put a spotlight when something like this happens. But this is not the Boko Haram's first go around, and as you just mentioned, they're responsible for a bombing at the park as well, and on that same day. So what is the origin of Boko Haram? Where do they come from, and how why are they doing why are they behaving in a manner?
The founder of Boko Haram, that is Mohammed, he had founded the organization in 2002, and the purpose of the organization was basically religious and school. So he established a mosque and as well as a Muslim school. And people around there, the poor people, were going to that school. But in 2009, that is when Boko Haram became violent. And of course, some of us, there are people who believe that it had a political undertone, because at that time, that is when the Boko Haram decided that they wanted to Islamize the whole of Nigeria. Now you have to understand that Nigeria has the south and the north. They have the southwest, the southeast, the south, the north. So Nigeria is really divided into 5 or so regions, and the north itself, out of 36 states, has 19 states because of the huge area they occupy, and then the south has 17 states, and most of the people in the south are Christians. Even in the north, you have 30% of the people in the north are Christians. And to say that you are now going to Islamize the whole country and introduce Sharia law is foolhardy. But the fact is that at that time, the late president was very sick, and there are people who believe that that is when the plot to remove to make it impossible for Jonathan to govern started, because the northern leaders did not want Jonathan to become president.
Well, hold on one second. I hate to cut you off. I know you were talking about this in your article, but I want to go back a little bit. Why do they want to Islamitize Nigeria?
Well, I mean, that was what they said, so that Nigeria would become an Islamic state. And you have to understand that during the period we had military rules. One of the military presidents, that is Babangida, made Nigeria a member of the IOC, that is the Islamic organization, and Nigerians had kicked against it, and so he was forced to take Nigeria out of OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, and to say that then you want to introduce Sharia law throughout the whole country, as I said, is something that most Nigerians, especially in the South, could not tolerate.
Right. So, and thank you for that, Doctor. I kind of, my question gears to along basically the government criticism, the criticism of the government, particularly President Jonathan Goodluck, and the neglect of the people in this region, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, because there's so much poverty, lack of education, lack of employment, and lack of opportunities within this region, it sort of gave birth to the Boko Haram to first form. I mean, they formed as a non-violent group in 2002, and then after their leader was killed by police, that's when they decided to take up arms and take a more of a military approach and strategy to sort of galvanizing people who were frustrated with the neglect. Now, we know that Nigeria is a very wealthy country because they have great oil resources, but the local people, especially within the Northeast, aren't seeing any of this wealth, and they're not seeing any type of progress, and they're being ignored. I mean, even for Jonathan Goodluck to not do anything, not take action for the first few weeks, says a great deal. So my question, so that leads me to the question, which is, can you speak about sort of the political atmosphere and the context of how Boko Haram came about, and how the people in the Northeast of Nigeria feel about them? Are they receptive towards? Oh, I mean, of course they're not receptive because they kidnap the people. But I mean, how is it that they had talk about their rise to power and how the government neglect sort of helped them manifest?
Well, before you do that, we do have to go on a quick break, so I'll have him come back with that.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I know. Timing is weird, right? But we'll have him come back with that answer. So hold on for 1 second, Doctor.
Okay.
We'll be with you in a second.
Hi, this is Sister Virginia Cotton, and I'll take you to that place every Tuesday morning from 6 to 10 in the a.m. on the Gospel Legends program. We'll lift the Savior and take a trip down memory lane. How far back will I go? Tune in on Tuesday morning, WHCR 90.3 FM from 6 to 10 in the a.m. And don't forget the website. That's the 3Ws.WHCR.org. I'm so excited.
And we are back on Let Your Voice Be Heard on 8.3 FM WHCR, the voice of Harlem. So, Selena, I know you asked a question, and it was a really good question, but we actually had, you kind of answered the question.
I answered the question while asking the question.
And I asked the question before already, so we're going to jump straight to Alyssa.
Okay, so my question is in regards to industrialization. So we're going to change gears a little bit, but I'm curious to understand. I know, well, actually, let me go back. I know that there's a lot of Western American and, not just American, but British oil companies. Nigeria has a lot of oil. Obviously, if you have oil companies want to come. They want to drill, baby, drill. That whole thing. So the question is, how does industrialization and the influence of Western oil companies and other Western companies, for that matter, influence the rise of the Boko Haram? And does that play a factor in the ultimately leading to the kidnapping of these girls?
Well, I think Selena's question is very important here because I don't think she answered it. Because to say that the North that is because of the poverty of the North that gave rise to Boko Haram is wrong, because you have to understand that Nigeria got its independence in 1960 from Britain, and that the North we are talking about has ruled Nigeria for 36 years out of the 53 years. In other words, the South has only ruled for 17 years, and the area that produces 90% of Nigeria's wealth is in the southeast, actually in the south, where Jonathan comes from. And that area is the largest amount of revenue for the country. And the North, you have to also understand that the richest man in Africa, Aliko Dangote, is from the North. And so many Northerners, they are very rich, especially those who have been in government and has looted the treasury of the country. But the fact is that you have an elite in the North who are extremely wealthy, but there is no doubt that there is a lot of poverty in the area. So is the South. The North gets the largest amount of revenue of the oil produced in the Niger Delta area.
Thank you so much for that. So we actually do have Mr. Francis James online, and I want to get to him. Melissa, I know you had a question.
No, the question's about oil, and our last guest just brought up the oil thing.
Before you bring up the question, I just want to introduce Mr. James. He is the board member of the Organization of the Advancement of Nigerians. Mr. James, thank you so much for calling into the show today.
You're very welcome, and thanks for having me.
All right, listen, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so, we just had the last guest mention oil and income inequality and the oil companies. I obviously brought it up. We got a little sidetracked, but I want to get back to that. And the question is about, specifically, I'm not going to rehash everything I already said, but just to go with the fact that, obviously, we've had Western influence based on oil companies and the fact that there's oil in Nigeria. How has the globalization and industrialization of Nigeria by the Western oil companies influenced the rise of the Boko Haram, if it at all, and how has it contributed to the situation that we're seeing with the girls?
Do you want me to take that question?
Yes.
I think it's very important that we, first and foremost, understand what is Boko Haram is all about. Again, I'm not sure if everybody is really aware. The official name for Boko Haram is actually Jamatu Ali Suma Leader Awatu Wal Jihad. And basically what it stands for is people committed to the Prophet teachings. Boko Haram is not a widespread phenomenon per se in Nigeria, but of course a very, very destructive phenomenon that needs to be dealt with appropriately. It's difficult at this point to be able to connect the oil industry or maybe all the very wealthy people in the North to Boko Haram. Boko Haram actually started, it was formed by an Islamic cleric in 2002. I believe his name was Mohammed Yusuf. And he started a complex which included schools and mosques. And he used it, and that was in Maiduguri. in the northeastern part of Nigeria, and he used it as a way to start recruiting jihadis because the residents of Maiduguri then coined the frame haram, which is basically against Western teachings or Western values. What Boko Haram primarily stands for is to be against anything that has to do with a Western culture. So, which also includes education or girls going to school. So, to tie them to the oil-rich industry may actually be distracting us from the fact that we've got a very dangerous element in the northeastern part of Nigeria that must be dealt with, rather than diffusing our focus and looking at the oil-rich people or maybe the wealthy people in Nigeria, because there's no direct connection right now to justify that type of argument.
Thank you so much for that. And I know, Alyssa, you had something you want to say about that.
I feel like there's a connection between government corruption and the amount of money that's being infiltrated into government by lobbyist groups that has to do with oil, and the fact that, the government, it seems to me, is largely ignoring some of the problems that they're having domestically or turning the other cheek, and that has to do with money and corruption, and that it's directly related to oil. And I obviously don't know enough about Nigeria and the political history and the influence of globalization to be able to speak on it. I think our guest makes a really good point that we don't want to distract the 2 points because it takes away from the focus of religion and education, which has a large influence on what's going on with the girls right now. But to me, money leads to political corruption, which leads to political instability. And so part of the reason why armed militants are able to walk into a school and abscond with 200 girls goes to government and the breakdown of government. And, I don't want to get into a larger conversation about systems of government and laws and that domestic conversation of progressivism versus libertarianism. I think it's not really something that we want to digress into right now. But ultimately, you're seeing a breakdown in governance. In the United States, I really highly doubt that some organization would be able to walk into a school and abscond with 200 girls and they would be able to go missing, and that the FBI, the DEA, all the other government agencies would be all over this right away, and you're not seeing that happen in Nigeria, and that's because of a breakdown in government.
I also think that it's just, for me, it's a perception of just how they value women in that country.
That's a good point.
That's a really good point. Excuse me, I think there is a lot of conspiracy theories here. The West, especially our brothers and sisters, can jump into this question of the government is not doing anything, the government is not doing anything. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. There is no doubt there is a lot of corruption in Nigeria and other countries in Africa. In fact, a meeting of African finance ministers just last week said that since 1970, Africa has lost $2 trillion because of corruption. $2 trillion for a continent that is supposed to be the poorest continent, although the richest continent in the whole world. So Nigeria has a lot of corruption, and I had mentioned the fact that a lot of people in the north are very rich, and oil has nothing to do with it. Government incompetence might have something to do with it. The military, as people have alleged, use the money that is given to them to buy equipment and share it amongst themselves. So it has nothing to do with conspiracy theories about the West coming in to destabilize the country or the oil companies. In fact, the oil companies were operating in the south, and they were the companies that suffered with the militants in the Niger Delta. That is MEND. But unlike MEND, which agreed to negotiate with the government, Boko Haram has absolutely refused to negotiate. Although at one time, when America decided to classify Boko Haram as a terrorist government, the Nigerian government refused. They refused in 2012 to have Boko Haram classified as a terrorist organization because the government believed that because of the bad name that already has been given to Nigeria and Nigerians abroad because of 419, that a lot of Nigerians would be harassed at the airport. And what had happened was in 2013, in November 2013, when Boko Haram decided to negotiate with the government in Cote d'Ivoire, that is Ivory Coast, that was in November 9th of 2013. They were in Ivory Coast negotiating when the U.S. decided to classify Boko Haram as a terrorist organization. On the same day that happened, the leader, that is Abubakar Shekau of Boko Haram, left the negotiation and hasn't gone back.
Thank you very much for that. So, guys, if you've been listening, I know you guys probably have a lot of questions. The number is 212-650-6903. Again, the number is 212-650-6903. I want to switch gears completely now. This is kind of had a bit of a roundabout conversation about this, and I want to come to the fact that now the president has sent our United States President Barack Obama has sent troops over to Nigeria to help in the search process of these girls. And a lot of people have been saying, there was one article in Complex, I think it was, saying that when the U.S. goes somewhere like in an African nation or in Nigeria, what it was doing is expanding its military complex. How much does the U.S. sending troops over help or hurt this cause in Nigeria?
Francis, can you answer that question for us, please?
Yes, I'll be glad to jump in and do that. I'll tell you one thing. I believe that the U.S. can help tremendously. It's, as a Nigerian, I'm really a Nigerian American. It's embarrassing that we have a president who is so incompetent and unable to muster any reasonable protection for the security of our people and property, that we need to call upon the U.S. to help us. Nigeria has 160 million people, and we have the natural resources that basically supersedes most nations. So the question is, can the U.S. really hurt or help? I believe the U.S. can help. The one thing that I want to lay down as a Nigerian is I strongly believe the U.S. should allow the Nigerian government to carry the tab. There's no need for the U.S. to use United States resources without getting recompensated by the Nigerian government. Having said that, it is a very complex dynamic. Regardless of what the U.S. would take over there, I understand we will be taking a lot of technology that will help us perform reconnaissance. The challenge is, how do we get sophisticated and well-trained military or technical help on the ground? Without those people on the ground, it's highly unlikely that using drones or using this sophisticated equipment that the U.S. is already committed to that region would actually help, one, find where these girls are, and secondly, the bigger issue is even rescuing them, because we're dealing with a group of people who are not operating like normal human beings. Once they know that the forces are basically closing in on them, the likelihood of what would happen is that they may start killing these girls.
Yes.
So that has to be factored into any type of operation that's going on right now.
Yeah, so thank you for that point. And I want to kind of ask a question of, like, I think you mentioned it earlier, Nigeria has the resources to address this on their own, don't they?
Absolutely.
So Absolutely. Then what's happening?
Well, the challenge that we have over here, when you have corruption that has become so pervasive, it is not that the Nigerian government does not have the resources and the ability to tackle Boko Haram. We all know that in 2009, when army barracks was attacked and politicians were being killed and police stations were being destroyed by Boko Haram, the government did channel a lot of resources, which eventually drove Boko Haram away from Maiduguri, and then they moved. The leader was actually captured and killed then, and a lot of their fighters were killed. So if those resources were there, why was they being consistently deployed the answer primarily has to do with the fact that there's some elements, either in government or in the upper echelon of the northern part of the country, who are benefiting from this destabilization. And that is what we are hoping that the international resources, international powers or countries would actually hold Nigerian government accountable to this. Until you have those resources, why aren't they being deployed before it gets to the point of us having some young girls being abducted?
Thank you so much for that, Francis. Francis, we're running out of time, so I want to close things up. The last question I want to ask, actually to both of you, and just make it very quick, is then, you were just mentioning about putting pressure on Nigerian government through, international forces about why they haven't used their resources. What can Americans do? What can we do in our role to help to continue to get the effort out there to not just save these girls, but stop the Boko Haram?
I think
Dr. Oyani first.
The problem is this. There are northern leaders.
No. Dr. Oyani, what can Americans do?
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. You can't cut off the snake from the tail. You have to cut it off from the head. And the fact is that despite anything that America might do, so far as you continue to have some northern leaders continue to deny, because one of the northern leaders wrote just 2 days before Boko Haram kidnapped those girls that Boko Haram was innocent.
So what you're trying to say is that we should address the corrupt government in Nigeria first?
Well, we should address the fact that there is no doubt that there is corruption on the federal level, but on the northern level, there are northern leaders who are providing this assistance to the Boko Haram, and those are the people who needs to be outed, and so that they can, if America is going to continue to help, they have to stop those people from continuing to provide assistance to the Boko Haram.
All right, thank you very much for that, Doctor. So, Mr. James, go ahead.
All right. I do believe there are a few things that Americans can do, including the Nigerian community in America. One, I think America should continue to apply pressure onto the United Nations to declare Boko Haram a terrorist organization. That's what it is. We cannot run away from that. Secondly, I think Americans can use its influence, and I do believe there are moral grounds for this. There's got to be a way to identify high-ranking government officials, including the President of Nigeria, by the way, if targeted sanctions are being applied on those people, because a lot of them have significant investments in America from the stolen wealth of the country that has been invested over here in the U.S. and in the United Kingdom and Germany and other countries in Europe. America can use its resources to target those leaders who have this type of investment and hit them where it really hurts.
Thank you very much for that, James. We gotta wrap up the show, but I want to thank you so much for calling in with that, with your information. Both you and Dr. Oyani, guys. I want to wrap this up really quickly. Americans can do something. A picture with a hashtag isn't necessarily what we can do. What we can do is put pressure on our governments to now turn up the heat on international countries and question Nigeria and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, because they haven't been, and they had the resources to get it done. We shouldn't have had to send American troops there in the first place. Obviously, this is a very long and complicated story, and it's not just between 234 girls who were kidnapped in high school. It goes far longer than that, with a story of corruptions and a lot of things that I probably couldn't explain to you even if I had all day to do it. But if we really want to make a difference over here, the way we do it is putting pressure on Nigerian government to do their job. Other than that, we may be mixing things up and getting into something that we can't handle because it's not our story. So with that, we're going to go away, but when we come back, we're going to have Alyssa, and she will be talking about the prayers and town hall meetings. This is Let Your Voice Be Heard on Whcr 90.3 FM.
Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Gotta get that. Boom, boom, boom. Gotta get that. Boom, boom, boom. Gotta get that.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
That boom, boom, boom. That boom, boom, boom. Yo, I got that
And we are back. All right, guys, we're going to get right into the quickie. Today we're going to be talking about Greece versus Galloway. Greece versus Galloway is a Supreme Court case, and it's about whether the practice of opening a town board meeting with a prayer, specifically a sectarian prayer, violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. We had two women who were representatives of the plaintiffs on back in November. They came on to express why this case was so important. They did not get the outcome they were looking for, unfortunately, as the Supreme Court held that the answer to that question is no. That when the but there's some caveats to that. It's not just no, it doesn't violate the First Amendment. It's no, based on these specific caveats, it does not violate the First Amendment. So what the court said in their ruling earlier in the week was that when the practice is consistent with long followed traditions of Congress and other state legislatures, and here's the important point, the town does not discriminate against minority faiths in determining who can offer a prayer, meaning the town allows people of all different faiths to put on a prayer so long as they follow the proper procedures to determine who's going to be putting on a prayer at any specific meeting. And as long as the prayer doesn't force the participation of non-religious people or people of different religions than that of what the prayer is being given, then even if the prayer is sectarian, it does not violate the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. So how did we get there? Well, it was a 5-4 decision. Predictably, you had Kennedy, Roberts, Scalia, Thomas, and Alito making up the 5 in the majority that ruled that this does not violate the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, and you had Justice Ginsburg, Kagan, Breyer, and Sotomayor saying that it does in fact violate the Establishment Clause because of government entanglement within the board meeting between religion and the Constitution and secular government. So here's some key points that we should discuss about the ruling. Obviously, the first one is there are winners and there are losers. The majority is made up of the 5, so their opinion is the ruling opinion. The 4 dissenters, while they clearly have come to the opposite conclusion, that's not what the law is. The law is until otherwise ruled, what the majority says it is. So ultimately, the thing that you should most understand is that a town board, a state legislature, and the national legislature can in fact have prayers, have an opening prayer at the beginning of their meeting, and so long as that prayer, like I said, so long as they allow other religions to participate, that it's not just Christians every single week, that they allow Jews and anybody of any religion, and also that they don't force anybody to participate. Essentially, the plaintiffs had argued that they're a captive audience, that in order for them to participate in the political process, they had to sit through this prayer. And ultimately, the court said, yes, that's true. They do. But they can walk out while the prayer is being given and come back, or they can, but they don't have to actually say the prayer. And so they're not really a captive audience. And that's a big part of it. But what you really should understand is this goes back 30 years to a case known as Marsh versus Chambers. In Marsh versus Chambers, the Supreme Court held that legislative prayer was constitutional. They said that in making that decision, they needed to consider whether there was a historical tradition of prayer and whether the prayers that were offered fit within that historical tradition. So in this case, Galloway, which was the plaintiffs, argued that these prayers did not, that there was a tradition of prayers, but not of blatantly sectarian prayers that talked about Jesus on the cross. However, the Supreme Court disagreed. They said that the prayers were not overly sectarian, and that because of these other factors, the fact that the town had allowed other religions to participate, and because the people could have walked out, as I already mentioned, that this did not violate the Constitution. This is basically what the town of Greece had argued, which was that Marsh, the old case from 30 years ago, was the controlling precedent, and therefore this was a simple open and shut case because the Supreme Court had already made the decision. Right. Now, obviously, the Supreme Court had to toe a line here because they had to, make a decision about the sectarian prayers. And actually, the court had an interesting take on this, was that, to step in even further and to make a rule where we had to have government officials deciding whether a prayer was too sectarian to be considered, that would actually cause more entanglement with government or religion, because then you would have government officials looking over every single prayer before it went on and saying, oh, this is good, this is not good, this is, and that actually would have caused government entanglement, because then a government official would have been having the last word on what is too religious, what's non-religious. So to avoid what the majority saw as more of an entanglement by having government officials specifically look at each and every prayer before it's given, they just said, okay, well, we'll allow religious groups to give sectarian prayers that can have religious imagery and other things within them, so long as these prayers are not used to condemn other people who don't participate or to try and convert them.
Right.
So just to sum that up and just bring it back full circle, they said that the most important point is that the prayers can have religious language as long as all faiths can put forth their own prayers when offered at the beginning of the meeting, and that the prayer is not used to condemn or to convert.
Right. So my thing is there any other angle that the plaintiffs or anyone who feels uncomfortable about having legislative prayers can they take, or is this a done deal? Because it sounds like it's open and shut, and this is it.
It's a done deal from what I see, and obviously that's my legal analysis of it. From my legal perspective, it's a done deal from a Supreme Court level.
Right.
However, there was a really interesting article that I was reading. I believe it was in the Huffington Post. I know I did forward it to Selena, and we'll try and get that up for you on the Let Your Voice Be Heard fan page so you can take a look at it. And actually, there's somebody, a professor, I think it is, and he's arguing that from a social perspective, what he seems to think is going to happen is actually going to be what he seems to think can be done is that atheist groups and groups that are non-Christian can get together now, and they can say, okay, fine, you know what, if they're going to allow Christian groups to have prayers, then let's get together and let's follow the proper procedures, and let's make sure that we have equal influence at the town board meetings. And so a big part of what the town of Greece argued was there's a lot of Christian prayers because there's a lot of Christians in our people in our neighborhood. And so what this guy is saying was like, okay, fine, well, if that's the truth, then other people from other religions within small towns should get together, like atheists and Jews and, Taoists and Buddhists, and we should say, okay, fine. Well, if we're seeing a lot of Christian prayers week after week after week, then we need to work together to get in there to the town hall meetings so that we can get our prayers heard also, and so that there's not a Christian prayer every week, and so that there's more diversity and more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Transparency?
Yeah, and more transparency, versatility, variety. Variety is the spice of life, and variety is obviously the spice of religion. So I think going forward, what I would say is if you go to your town hall meetings, one, if you're unhappy with the prayer, you should know that you can walk out and then you can come back in, and that shouldn't stop you from participating in the town hall meeting. The fact that you don't sit through the prayer cannot stop your participation. You're allowed to walk out and come back. And secondly, that if you really don't want to hear Christian prayers, if you live in a predominantly Christian neighborhood but you're not Christian, then you should group together with other people who are of different religions or of no religion and tell your town board that you want to give a prayer also, even if it's a secular prayer.
Right. No, I think that's a really good solution, and I'm glad that we're going to end right there. Thank you so much for that, Alyssa. Unfortunately, we have to go, but we will be back next Sunday right here, 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Let Your Voice Be Heard. Of course, we are broadcast on Whcr 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. We had a great time with you guys. Thank you for your calls. Thank you for listening and following us on Twitter at BeHeard_radio. And we'll see you next week.
Let's go to the beach, let's go get a wave. They say what they gonna say. Have a drink, clink, found a Bud Light.
Listen to the smooth, silky sounds of the Soul Lounge experience with your host, DJ Leroy, Tony Smooth, and the Night Watchman. Remember, the Soul Lounge experience comes to you live at midnight, the first Saturday morning of every month on WHCR 90.3 FM New York and WHCR.org. So kick back, relax, and let the Soul Lounge experience take you away. You'll never listen to radio the same again.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. The only thing I didn't learn in school today is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
There's hundreds of fun and simple things you and your family can do to live a healthier lifestyle. Here's 20 of them. Eat less, eat slower, eat smarter, eat your fruits and veggies. Stop eating before you're full. Up your fiber, lower your calories, get off the bus early, do some gardening, do jumping jacks, take the stairs, take one, not two, take on a new sport, take a long walk home, walk instead of drive, bend, stretch, reach for the stars, climb the monkey bars, skip the fudge bars. Search We Can online to find more ways you and your family can get healthy together. A message from the Ad Council, HHS, and NIH's We Can program. There's hundreds of fun and simple things you and your family can do to live a healthier lifestyle. Here's 20 of them. Walk to work, walk the dog, have the dog walk you, take a hike, take a bike, skate, dance, hop, jump, do the Humpty Hump, skip seconds, skip dessert, skip to Malou, don't skip breakfast, drink H2O, lower your sodium, raise the roof, shake your booty, stock up on vegetables, and don't forget to eat them. Search We Can online to find more ways you and your family can get healthy together. A message from the Ad Council, HHS, and NIH's We Can program.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better. And kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor. Because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
Most days go by without a whole lot of surprises. But what if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life, as you know it, has completely turned on its head? Would you be prepared? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, be ready. Get a kit. Make a plan. Be informed. Learn how at www.ready.gov. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
You're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
WHCR is doing it again, giving you an opportunity to show your support while having a great time. On Saturday, May 17th from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., WHCR's house DJs come together to bring you Uptown Saturday Night, a house party fundraiser like no other. You decide how much you want to pay to party. No donation is too large or too small. So grab your dancing shoes, your whistle, and your donation, and dance to the sound of house and classic dance music by WHCR's DJ Stunner of House in Harlem, the dub master Mike D of Mystic Vibes, and DJ Howie D of The Love Zone. That's Uptown Saturday Night, a house party fundraiser, Saturday, May 17th, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. at Adar Lounge, located at 1637 Park Avenue at the corner of 116th Street. Remember, your financial support ensures that some of the best music, most informative, and educational programs continue to be heard on this station.
Speak drums. Tell the real story for the people who would condemn in slavery.